Put cinema in the comments because yes, friends, ladies and gentlemen, after trying again intensively to Citlali and Mavuika, to Chero, Cones in Arma, Cone and C2. All combinations of fee teams test the new National Archon correctly with Furina, Mavuika, Raiden, and at the expense. That, as we already know, is 99% confirmed a second Bennett that will surely improve more too. Today, I bring you the most anticipated film from the channel that comes approximately once every half-year, updated after Mavuika and Citlalidoy. Revolutionized and changed forever the conception of Genshin Impact equipment and has surpassed in 90% of Genshin Impact player accounts all their records of damage. Leave a good like, a good ulti and subscribe, leave a good comment for the thaw if you never left like or you're the one who watches the videos, but no. This video is the kind. You have to stop for a moment and give it like, but if you're one of those who don't comment on this video, remember that you can give a lunar blessing just for that comment is one of those that have to be the first. And remember also to subscribe with bell, and that all that is free, which supports a lot, which recommends, positions, and makes the channel grow, which aside helps a lot in the entire channel team. A lot of people who work to get you all this. This movie, this cinema, they're very grateful. Like, subscribe with bell and commentary for algorithm. Today we will see the net top 10 goal list, because it's going to be 10 teams, because in Genshin there are more than 30 combinations. Top 10 best teams from Genshin Impact post-MAVUIKA Torta. Oh my god, what I wanted to do. Well, initially it's very important, always disclaimers. Clarifications, notes, and other important things, because then there are mini-minis. Number 1, do not be mini-minis. Number 2, you have to have, and I will take into account realistic ceilings of all equipment. That is, the cheese are of course discarded because no one is able to get chicks, but the if they are going to take into account because it is the most realistic thing in the world, then a person who, more than a year in Genshin Impact if you get your Chinese Mona with gun and cone or with gun and C2. If you have a lot of time saving with patience and luck too. That on the one hand. And on the other hand, side, so that the tier list is much more complete. Apart from explaining to you the best variant of each of the teams, I will also speak in them slightly of subvariants. Variants free to play. Although free to play people confuse it with full 4 stars, and that's a lie, it's unreal. No one plays full 4 stars or the most free to play in the world, but I will also do some mention of simple variants of 4 stars or which weapons can go and others. But above all, you have to enjoy it. Take it easy because it's going to be long and you're going to like it very much. The tier list I'm referring to, gentlemen. Calm down that I'm seeing you. What are you thinking? The top 10, and it's going to surprise everyone as I think. Back then were the times where I think you all remembered where inside the tops were there. Permafrost, the Tartaglia Internationals, the national teams of Xingqiu, Xiangling. Bennett, you remember the old tier list and the first Genshin Impact teams? Where all this is left behind, and it does bring you some nostalgia. Well, we opened with a character that surprises you, but is that possibly of the whole tier list sounds to you just those who you've been playing one and maybe you still have the teams to say, the beginning of Inazuma. It's not gonna sound less like a team, practically none, they're all pretty. Recent and all of course have believed the game itself, mainly with NATLAN. The top 10 casually starts by Chlorinde, a character who at the level of absolute damage. Equality in constellations has more damage than Raiden, and this may surprise you. Problem that has Chlorinde on the one hand is that it is true that it is very versatile, but on the other hand, so much versatility does not end up doing it properly with 100% of synergy in all teams. To this day, the teams most played and consistent of Chlorinde. It's casually 2 teams that don't play too much with Raiden, but that Raiden does a job, also spectacularly well, which are Chlorinde's overload and equipment with Nahida. Furina and Baiju.I. Not many people have Baiju, and also Baiju on this team gives us 20 seconds of rotation when Chlorinde actually uses 15 because it is its normal rotation with Furina. And so, Chlorinde talking about absolute DPS, especially with Cone and C2, is scary. But the reality is that Chlorinde is not a pure character of a pure core, but it's really a Hyper Bloom subvariant where other characters get much more roof and much more damage, curiously, not only because of the gross damage of the carry, but also. I mentioned Chlorinde because of the overloads, since in this top 10 I mentioned Chlorinde Boot. Really, as an absolute position of this top 10 would be great. And speaking of variant seeking, free to play mention the pure overloads of Chevreuse, where you can play Chevreuse, and now, with the arrival of MAVUIKA, as MAVUIKA, or a Xiangling, and preferably MAVUIKA here has better synergy and does more damage for the 18 seconds of cooldown instead of 20 that Xiangling has, and Constellation 2. If we count on it, that reduces the defense of all enemies by 20%. Basically here, if we talk about an absolute overload ceiling with Chlorinde Fischl MAVUIKA Chevreuse. Or this roof, let's say the Chlorinde itself, inside Hyperbloom Chlorinde, considering the character as such and the role that can bring us to the game individuality but lack synergy with so many teams, even though it works decently on many of them. Chlorinde. Start as top 10 with mention Orifice, and also put with Chlorinde the overload with it. Included of the best teams today of the game, and also mentioned Orifice in this position. Chevreuse, let's go to the top 9 because it's starting to scare the thing up here, and I'm sure this can get you. Sounding this post has been well deserved, and has gone up, improving everything above that you had. Ever heard of Genshin Impact by Xilonen? I'm talking about the Navia team is the top 9 of current teams of the game. Navia, the combination that she can have with Xilonen C2 that harms the Geo with Furina and her famous C2 and Bennett, or the current combination with MAVUIKA. C2 and Bennett, spoiler, still better Furina, the absolute roof of Navia, remains Navia Xilonen. Enemy, or if the enemies are lined up, they receive the canon of Navia as well grouped enemies, and in line, and not only that, but really to this day, the teams of Navia in Halls of the Abyss. Since the enemies have a certain amount of life, and we cannot in some cases already pass of some damage by rotation because the enemies disappear, and the ability of Navia of focusing that damage on 2 cannons so that the enemies actually disappear gives us 1 of 1. Teams with cannons and big numbers, more fun, but above all more destructive in Abyss that Genshin Impact has had, and above all, absolute roof of the Geo. If this is the first and last time we're going to see a team purely based on Geo element. To Xilonen, if you are going to see her much higher, I told you that I was going to be one of the best characters of all Genshin Impact, and is practically of the 5 as 3 of the top 5 teams of the V game. You know a little close to what I mean, and without doing much spoiler, you know that the best in Nubilatus slot with Xilonen, but pure Geo equipment for top 9 Geo lovers. Game teams here as variant, more free to play a bit to complete instead of Xilonen is. Can play B12 Zero Kiori can be played up to Kachina, even there second Geo. And then instead, Furina can be played Yelan Xingqiuyang. And Bennett, no variants, so yes, I would recommend play Bennett with Navia, but 2 more important points. Number 1, quiet, because like I say, there's a new Bennett coming to Genshin, because you're gonna see a lot of Bennett in this tier list. Number 2, as I said at the beginning of the video, every computer that is from NATLAN surely and carry a Bennett. And because NATLAN characters benefit NATLAN characters, put number 8. I'm very intrigued. I'd like to know how you do yours. Tier list, and when I say put number 8, that team, imagine that it will fall here of all teams. That there are ladies and gentlemen, this was a team that on many occasions became top 1 of deck. Genshin Impact, especially during the time of Summer and beginning of Fontaine until arrival of Nubilate in the 4.1 of Fontaine, and now has reached position number 8 because it has teams that far outperform their damage by rotation, especially because this team right here has a very interesting directed damage, a solid defensive contribution, and a distribution of damage. Multi-target also quite solid, but if you look more and more at the abysses, they put us big voices, and the goal is really to make the character versatile, but also able to do a lot of damage multi-target and uni-target, and this team has versatility, and was the king of Genshin. Impact, but the limitation of damage if it does not have overinvestment is greater of the other equipment. New Natal with power. Creep, I'm talking about Hyperbloom. Hyperbloom for a long time was the best variant of team combinations of the game. And here again explain another disclaimer, and is that if we talk about Hyperbloom and talk about Nubilate Furina Nahida Kuki, which is Hyperbloom, even if we have the core of Nubilate Furina of Hydro Monkey, the truth is that counting only their Nubilated team could be much higher. But considering that Hyperbloom is one thing, and that really the Hyperbloom that people play are but Alhaitham, Tignari, and Kinish, mainly. Some people also play the team mentioned before, Chlorinde, which is also very strong. Fair. It's actually that Nubilate people played in Hydro Monkey, and not so many people play Nubilate Hyperbloom anymore. So Nubilate Hyperbloom would go higher. The truth, in fact, would be one of the roofs of Hyperbloom. Today, if we talk about constellations, but the reality is that Hyperbloom people play it in different ways, and indeed many free-to-play. You play the mythical Nahida Xingqiu Kuki, and another Hydro, plus a Yelana. A Furin, something I pulled out, or even some second inside it was he, as the Traveler inside, or School, or something like full free-to-play. So the Hyperloom in its variant more used and purer, not counting the Nubilate equipment wanted above, is here the ceilings. Actually, Hyperloom may surprise you a lot, but Kinish has them apart from Nubilate, yes. New characters who have recently arrived and characters who do for grip to the ancients. That would be the Kinish C2 and Weapon Nahida, C2 and Weapon Furina, C2 and Weapon, and Kuki Shinobu of 4 stars. One of the scripts of the apocalypse that you will no longer see in this tier, but of the few 4 stars that you will see in the list of teams goal, but below Kinnick because continues to play and will be played in which to whistle more than mature because they're real core and more now without Mavuika. The Hyperlooms, then more stable and played mainly are Alhaitham and Tignari. But they depend on Furina, and you play Furina for sure. More teams you'll see now. After the Hyperlooms, and in a very similar damage that would only overcome the Hyperlooms. If we talk about constellations, but if we talk about Chero, the Hyperlooms would be above. These equipments to minimum IE accounts with less investment accounts, more early accounts without less knowledge or less number of characters. I'm going to talk about Raiden and after learning. Because good, but Raiden talking only about individualities worse than Chlorinde, and it's true. Equal conditions is because Chlorinde, but Raiden and Shilonin, in this case power creep or the Raiden and Percari can evolve a Hypercarry at rotation of 15 seconds with the Shilonin buffs. C2, but it is also that Mavuika. And if we speak, as I say, of roofs and constellations, gives us a new Arcante National infinitely better than the previous Raiden National. And then if friends remember that today, all we are seeing from Mavuika is with Mavuika Talents to 7 and on many occasions. Currently Mavuika Talent to 7 is already surpassing Xiangling with GAZE's talent to 10 with weapon 5 stars and with items of a failure per item of artifacts I want to refer. And if I am talking from the National Archon of Raiden, Furina, Mavuika, Bennett, and Hypercarry would be lower, but I'm naming here as an original ninja because in the end, Raiden, because mainly you all play Raiden National, the Raiden and Percari, basically Raiden and Percari would be lower, but careful with this team because quite fear can come to us if you play well, but above all, the new Archon National will make a video. I don't know if I've already done it, because it records many videos and they're going out little by little, 2 a day at the most, because it doesn't give the time, neither the channel nor you, to watch so many videos and upload 3 or 4, but basically Raiden Furina's National Archon, Mavuika Bennett, and if we talk about both Raiden, C2 and Furina, and Mavuika, we have a team where Mavuika gives 40% damage inflicted on the character in field. Mavuika causes it to be eliminated. 20% of the defense of the enemies. Furina gives 100% damage to the equipment, and there is a comparison with the usual National Raiden. And is that Raiden is no longer giving the harm inflicted on the team's ultis, i.e. Raiden is not giving here the damage inflicted on Yelan's ulti or damage inflicted on the ulti of Xiangling. Apart from that, Raiden, if it can reach the maximum of loads of ambition, but it obviously depends on your cone that gives you more burdens, because again we are not pulling the ulti of Xiangling with cost of 80 that only gives loads on the wheel of ambition to Raiden to do more damage if we are not throwing away an ulti of MAVUIKA that consumes combat points, no energy, with which does not give loads. Then this equipment to Chero is worse than the Raiden National. But this team to C2 of all the characters is the pick, is the national classicism, is the Arconte National is a team that surpasses the Hyperloom, but I repeat, only with C2 of all the characters, and the core is clean, i.e. MAVUIKA out of the field may be doing more ticks of 100k and much more in fact, and quite scary. And not only that, but they can nuke your ulti, getting to do more damage than Raiden herself, doing Raiden's eye rotation. Elemental ulti of Elemental Fiorina of MAVUIKA, ulti of Bennett, ulti of MAVUIKA with all the from Fiorina and Bennett a million. If you have everything very well built, talents to the 10 that not yet, we can do it, and then we go in with Raiden to get his cut of another 500,000 too. Probably or more above is applying Electro for MAVUIKA out of the field, grabs hits of 100, 120 or more in the future. Then very curious, this team very well. The truth really depends. Those C2, if not all C2, the conventional national Raiden is slightly better with Xiaoling, Raiden Chero, but the national anti-bow with absolute roof here follows. This is the number 6. We're already in the hard way. We're in the hard way, please. Those memes are in stream on. Okay. YouTube videos behave well when I say these things. We go to number 6, and here is going to surprise a character who still has bugs, is still inconsistent, but today has improved so much, and it does so much harm that with putting an ulti and the first bite the enemies, and above all the Abyss disappears here to explain that I made you a video recently speaking in a new game mode that is called the Challenge Tower, that I think here in the Challenge Tower, enemies are going to endure much more than in the Abyss, because it's a way actually not only to see large numbers, but even to test the Balaneo or ceilings. You can. People arrive because in the Abyss today you count very well built is not exaggeration. They did the rooms to people with accounts like us creators without malinating. I have no character 5-star skicks. That is not permanent, that came out without wanting to last us, eh? 2 strokes rotation last us the halls of the Abysses, and it's no joke, you've seen me do it a lot. Chero has gone down to the wolf, for example, from an ulti and a bite that capable editors are putting. This way the gameplay, if gentlemen, is Molani is the top number 6 best teams. Current games in Impact Team Core is Molani, Fiorina, Shelonen and MAVUIKA, where again MAVUIKA will be able to vaporize his ulti, and with very good construction to put a million calmly with its ulti before the Molani itself. And the rotation is curious, and I must always explain it, because there are people who don't understand it. If you put Fiorina away to paste MAVUIKA, hits very little difference. Obviously Angling and will not be able to vaporize with Molani, but the rotation starts to activate the White's inflicted damage of Fiorina with Fiorina mode glue ulti, then elemental ulti of Silonen 2. Put the buff into the Molani Hydro, and here you just enter with MAVUIKA to make ulti elementally perfectly to vaporize it, and before entering with Molani, you switch to Fiorina to switch to Madu, healing your elemental, and you're already in clean with Molani to vaporize its ulti. It's 3 bites, but the truth is that if everything is well built, the gameplays you're seeing, my Molani is Chero. Currently in the MAVUIKA of my free-to-play, I do not have Molani is Chero also, or Cone if later. I got lucky and I got Cone out. I don't know, because I'm recording this before some stuff then. To imagine whether that Molani was Cone or C2 or that MAVUIKA, or that Cone or C2 Molani currently 4. Many well-built accounts will simply be when the ulti of MAVUIKA destroys the small enemies and survive the last, or the boss Molani will enter with the ulti will enter another million with the ulti, and after the first bite it is very likely that there are no more room in the Abyss if we speak of large numbers, but of large numbers come the following places. To end with Molani, the variant's free to play because it is playing with a Dendro, and I do not know a Dihaya so my Xiangling instead of Mavuika to apply Pyro and some teams with Kachina in it. Shilon is not so bad, but it's obvious that there's usually a lack of heating then instead of Furina. I've seen a lot of people play Zhongli for Geo Consonance as long as I apply Pyro from someone. For more play, as I say, some combination of Dendro to make Burn and Molani vaporize is enough. Many times the Dendro that is played with Molani, even if it is not 4 stars usually. Be Emily or Nahida, and many do have Nahida on your team, so no problem. That's why, and then that's the second Dendro Toma Xiangling Deha. If you go Deha, you can't go Nahida. Deha has to go yes or yes with Emily, because Nahida and Deha have the problem that if not, stick anything out of the field they too don't activate, and then try it because you'll see. That doesn't stick in the ticks and there's no burn. That's very funny and very curious, so Molani. Top 5 gentlemen. I think many will be unbelieving with the top 5, and I don't think maybe. Many believe that it can really be here, but this team far exceeds the damage by rotation of Moalani above all, and again with some 5-star C2 as it is Sitalai, but it is also has more value because the carry of this team is 4 stars, is a 4 stars that has entered the top 5 most damage by rotation of the whole game, and I speak of gaming the top 5 teams. Currently, if we have Sitalali to melt and has improved that Sitali is gaming with Gaman. Currently in Abyss, and still without optimal construction, I have managed to do not know if this is even abusive to say. I think I'm going to disrespect people by saying this with Gamin. Currently, I managed to make 900,000 in Abyss continuously by descending with the capacity to do faster and more consistently more damage than Molani if friends, and in fact, you'll be watching the gameplay. The enemies won't last more than 2 downhills in the Abyss. If any enemy would last me longer than 2 descendings, I could be putting it in because that 5 or 6 strokes of full 900,000 in the Abyss. The pick of this gaming team is obviously with Silly C2 and Gun, but you can play perfectly with Sitlali Chero with Furina Chero, which was the previous team a little worse, and yes, Furina, even if it was C2, is better. Sitlali equal conditions against Furina with gaming then. Gaming, you know that if it depends enough on Nixiangyu and Bennett, which here gaming has more potential. Better when the Bennett comes out 5 stars of NATLAN that will come out in Molani, not because Moalani, in the end it doesn't go with a Bennett on the spoiler team, less a team than they're from here too. Up on the at least one team, they all go with a Bennett with which those who are here up not only are they good, but they will improve even more if gentlemen are afraid what can happen with Genshin. So top number 5 gaming, there are free-to-play variants of gaming full 4 stars for free-to-play would be gaming Diona Rosaria, and Bennett and Rosaria don't have to have Diona constellations if you depend a little on your 6 for 200 masters, so gaming equipment. Crazy, real crazy. Gaming teams and more conceptually, top number 4 Genshin. Impact Kinnish, the Dendro Kinnish child. Really the self-worth of him many people, as it is a character who hasn't had so much fandom or so much time in the game, let's say it's true. That can be attributed to their supports, i.e. Kinnich's best in slot wrongly. Many people talks about Emily on Kinnich's team, and it's not true. The pure burn of Kinnish, Emily, Mavuika, and Bennett is fine, but the 2 Kinnish ceilings are really without Emily are Kinnish Furina. Furina Bennett, and you put Raiden instead of Kinnish because you have the bow before national list that I explained, for example, or Bennett Furina and Mavuika in general have quite a few combinations of and they are very powerful supports, and not many people have Nish here in their accounts, but both. Kinnich's absolute ceilings are his new burn equipment, plus cracking more vaporized reverses of Furina, getting Furina 200k out of the field, where Kinnich is an absolute madness, where he New Kinnich is a character who can put 5 balls in the first of 800,000 and then more. 4 balls of 500,000 consecutively each, plus the 200 continuous out of the field. Vaporizing Furina on the burn, plus Mavuika's own raw damage without vaporizing. Maybe continuously making 40-50k or more, the vaporization of the Mavuika itself as if it You make the combo of Fiorina, ulti of Bennett, ulti of MAVUIKA. Vaporized with the Bufo of Fiorina. Bennett Bufo, you can also get 1,000,000 before entering with Kinish on many occasions. Many abysses won't give you time to go in with Kinish. It's no joke. You're not going in with Kinish. The enemies are gonna go and you're gonna go to the next room, and Kinish didn't literally enter the field. Kinish today with MAVUIKA overcomes Moadani, surpasses gaming, is very consistent, and there is a second separate rotation to accumulate more charges from Kinish's weapons, so Kinish in the field will do more damage, which is throwing Kinish's ulti at the beginning of rotation, then MAVUIKA's elemental then. Combo of Fiorina, ulti of Bennett, ulti of MAVUIKA, and you enter with Kinish. Here MAVUIKA does not vaporize the big ulti, but Kinish's damage is higher, because you accumulate the 6 loads of 60% damage inflicted. That gives Kinish's weapon, unlike the other rotation that Kinish, when he enters without, there's been no burns or reactions inside, but there's been 1,000,000 damage without. MAVUIKA zo top number for Kinish, and we got into major leagues. A salute to Metapod for president. Channel that always Pokemon fans had them very entertaining and very good content creators. We entered major leagues with the 3 best teams today from Genshin Impact the 3rd. It's clear, and it's Arlecchino today. Kinish and gaming teams are pretty scary. Especially because a 5-star Bennett here would mainly benefit Kinish by B of NATLAN, but currently Arlecchino remains above the other two with very little bull. The Arlecchino ceiling and the absolute prime is without any current character of NATLAN, and yes, it is true that there is a slightly clean rotation with Citally, but there is a roof, melted, very early and then decays quite apart from that. Many Citally are playing Italy, with gaming and above all with MAVUIKA, but who plays MAVUIKA support and has Citally out there? You can play with Arlecchino and have one of the 2 best in slot, the natural best in slot with a sustained damage more stable is Arlecchino Fiorina Katsuha Bennett, where the rotation is a bit complex, but when you learn to do it the same, the rooms last 2 rotations, or if it is a single, you last a rotation where you do elemental ulti of Fiorina, if it is Kazuha cone, elemental ulti of Kazuha, and you save the cone reset for another elemental after Bennett's ulti here. Kazuha does the elemental loaded inside Bennett ulti to also put Green Shadow and Whirlwind Pyro, and here you go with Arlecchino, that when it is C2, you put a load and release the tremendous nuke that you can get to put 5,600,000 and the normal ones where you vaporize 1 in 3. With the application of Fiorina plus the ulti of Kazuha imbued with Hydro with Fiorina and vaporized beams. 400 or 500, also 1 in 3. The only thing here is improving it or not. With Citally is strange, and I explain where the problem is. But let's say Fiorina's team and Citally are there because does not improve like gaming, because the rotation with Citally and the application of Citally are so complicated that if you don't do the rotation well, you lose a lot of damage, but by doing it well strips Citraly's ulti at the end and you lose seconds of Kazuha, and Bennett's buffos what it does. That Arlecchino's peak damage at first melting is very high, but the 4 seconds after once the buffos of Kazuha and Bennett are finished before time, Arlecchino lose enough damage compared to the stable rotation of Fiorina. I explain it anyway and will do video apart from Arlecchino, explaining then whether Arlecchino improved with Citally or not, or some comparison with MAVUIKA DPS. But basically it would be a basic of Citally to fit Cryo. The enemies are loaded, and here again we do something similar to the previous combo, that is to say cone if it is Katsuha elemental ulti of Kazuha, and we save the reset of the cone if it is Chero Omni the ulti. So that the ulti Katsuha is imbued in Cryo, then ulti of Bennett, then elemental loaded with Kazuha too. Inside Bennett, make a Whirlwind Pyro and activate all the buffos, and here comes the problem. In the rotation of Fiorina, we would have already dropped Fiorina's combo here in the rotation with Citally. We have to go in one more time after Kazuha and Bennett with Citally to make ulti elemental. Quickly to reapply Cryo and activate all of Citraly's buffos, and there just now, we would enter with Arlecchino, the melt of the steel of Arlecchino here, because it can make 800, 900, or with a lot of investment up to 1,000,000 the first melted, because making 600, 700,000, which is crazy. But I'm saying here quickly in 3 seconds, Kazuha and Bennett's buffs are going to end. And the last 4 seconds of Arlecchino hitting are going to do far less damage than the damage. Arlecchino's steaming are very similar to the 2 rotations and the 2 teams. Arlecchino is one of the characters who has not benefited so much from Citrally, but because Hoyoverse has worked very well, so that it really benefits MAVUIKA in any case and not Arlecchino, and so that in the future you can play an Arlecchino Fiorina Kazuha Bennett, and on the other hand, play a MAVUIKA Citrally Shilonen X Balank, and can be 2 teams matching the one. With the other top number 2, some will tell me Phil, but I haven't said the 4 stars of Arlecchino worth. Arlecchino, Xinqiu, and Sucrose and Benedict, and you have a team of 4 stars vaporized from. Very interesting. Arlecchino also top number 2 and top number 1 before you know the top number 2 and the top number 1 of that. Without impact, I tell you and ask you, what do you think? Neuvillette has been dethroned. You think Neuvillette holds position number 1, or you think MAVUIKA is? Has surpassed Neuvillette well, to the surprise of many, and surely to the scare of many others. Neuvillette is the number 2 spot of best teams in the game, not by much, and here comes another disclaimer. And it's that if we talk about 2 very important concepts for Genshin, which is individuality, and the self-sustaining Neuvillette wins because he heals, and because his way of distributing the damage allows him to continue to sunny halls of the abyss. That is to say, under these criteria, Neuvillette could become still number 1, but if we talk about roofs with C2 and gun, since Neuvillette C2 is a C2 is... that does not contribute so much and is very close to the MAVUIKA limit, and considering that we have not yet, could raise the talents none of us with C2 and C2 and C2 and Weapon Shiloh in C2 and Weapon Shiloh and Bennett, and without taking into account but honorifical mention that in the future is Balan that will improve. Bennett on MAVUIKA's team, or MAVUIKA further improves against Neuvillette, and already Neuvillette wins without any Isbalan. That MAVUIKA teams have just given us a new roof. In Genshin Impact, Neuvillette is the current top 2 for virtually nothing of best equipment. Genshin Impact, the Neuvillette cord, you know, that also improved with Shiloh Neni, would be as new. Billet Furina, Katsuha and Shiloh Neni, but for many free-to-play 4 stars you can play. Neuvillette can be played with Fischl, can be played with Furina Chero, which is almost all with all. Neuvillette surely, but you can play Baidu, can be played. I don't know, even Kachina for you. Give out a crystallize and activate the parchment set can be played with infinite Neuvillette. Combinations that will work almost always well, or you can even play, as I mentioned almost at the beginning, from the tier list, and Neuvillette Hyperblooms can play Neuvillette, Nahida Kuki, and some other Hydro. Extra there to help even Furina herself, so you have variants, and many ask me, fill a Neuvillette with MAVUIKA, because Neuvillette with MAVUIKA has surprised me more than I thought, and it could become the second best variant of Neuvillette if you switch to Kazuha here for MAVUIKA, but especially if MAVUIKA this too for the elimination of 20% defensive enemies. You have a team where Neuvillette Furina Shiloh Neni has the Hydro Monkey core, but MAVUIKA in case not only vaporizes everything out of the field, also putting 100 Kike strokes when talent. You can go up to 10, but also the ulti to 1,000,000 not but 800 900 you can put calmly off the field, and it's going to happen the same thing, that many enemies are going to disappear before you come in with Neuvillette, and it's gonna be really funny. It's gonna be really fun when you want to go in with Neuvillette. Stick and you can't until I come out new endgame, where the enemies will endure much more like this. Put number 2, the Mono Hydro of Neuvillette Cone and Gun is its real roof. The C2 does not provide it. Practically nothing compared to a Furina C2 and Weapon Shiloh Neni C2, without the weapon, nothing happens enough. Katsuha di Misiaru or Cone is well in this team, and currently, even if it surprises us, or even shock, and especially considering that no one is able to test a MAVUIKA with the talents. At level 10 in the private betas, and you can and others, the best current team of the game, though, has limitations, although there are many people who do not like the bike as a carry, and above all, he beats her, or the contra that I would see him myself. and I would put him in, is that the way to divide the damage of MAVUIKA is less consistent and has less area than the way to distribute the damage of the jet. Novelet tier could be discussed, and that many people say Novelet is still the best and can be the truth because it depends on the combination of enemies, of the ease of people to adapt to the team, even from the antiquity of the character, since many people the characters sit old like Novelet, who have already returned twice to the game, has them, but MAVUIKA just get there, and not everyone has 7 the law, so you could perfectly put Novelet still top 1, but over time, and when people can get more characters and play everything in a slightly cleaner way, MAVUIKA is Genshin Impact MAVUIKA's best current team. C2 and weapon with thirst for obsidian and helmet attack, very important, and very careful with this attack helmet capping proportion, since both the C2 and the ulti give it much more damage in field in proportion to your attack than Citral and C2 and weapon to melt everything I have already arrived to. 3 million only with the first cut of MAVUIKA that will be here on screen later. If you want to, and you want to, and you want to, and you want to take it easy, but it could be a next weapon. Best in slot. And finally, Bennett with improvement potential when it comes out is Belank best in slot. Genshin Impact's best team and above Novelet's team in rotation damage. This is the current 2024 goal team list after MAVUIKA. Thank you very much for those you have. I hope you value the work of the entire channel team in this video. 5 or 6 people apart from me have been involved to make everything work, and it's okay thanks to all of them too. Are sure to now be seeing this frame while they're finishing up edit so that you can have this piece of video. And by valuing the work, those people simply you help a lot, because by giving a like to the video, sharing it, even if it is to melt me, because I'm already having fun, but at least go through the groups where you're playing or sharing, chatting about Genshin Impact. Give your opinion in the comments. Who never watch. I encourage you to really tell me their team, not because mini or whatever you want, or I agree in everything, or I missed a blum, neither the blum nor the bloom, because they would not enter to the top 10, but they are very strong, or etc. What you think. But thanks for supporting this video there. MAVUIKA strike. I think I told you that I would like you to arrive soon at 100,000, and they're actually going to reach 100,000. That's around here, so support her if you haven't seen, or share it. And this video, as most old tier list, always channel tier list. So we'd love the channel team to have this video, the tier list of teams goal between already 200, 300, or up to 500,000, little more. Remember to subscribe also, that we are close of the 200,000 cares. Have very good day. Thank you for accompanying me in this piece of film. Here the credits taken care to have very good day. I don't know Minnie and Chaito.